Hey you guys, hello and welcome. I hope you guys are doing really well. I wanted to make a video on tomatillos. So this here is Physalis ixocarpa. It's almost synonymous with Physalis philadelphicus, or philadelphica. They're in the Solanaceae family. They're also known as husk tomatoes. And yeah, I just wanted to make a video on these. So they're in the nightshade family, as I said. They produce this really neat tomato-like fruit that has a husk around it. So they're in the genus Physalis, which means that they're actually related to the Chinese lantern plant, and they're also related to the gooseberry. So a few things I want to say about these. They are native to central Mexico and parts of the highland regions in Guatemala. In Guatemala they're known as Miltomates, and then in Mexico they're known as Tomatillos. They're really good for making Salsa Verde. They're really good for eating alongside tostadas, just all sorts of different Mexican and Guatemalan food applications. But yeah, so if I had to describe the growth habit of this plant, I would describe it as a tomato that behaves like a pepper. What I mean by that is it has a branching growth habit. And it's indeterminate, which means that you can never really know where the top is, because at every single point that it branches, it just gets a little bit taller. So this plant over here gets to about 100 centimeters high, so a few feet, and it spreads a little bit wider than that, usually around 3, sometimes 3.5 feet wide, so they do need some space. And another thing I will say, so I'm going to repot these in bigger pots. But you can plant them in relatively small containers, just so long as you make sure that they have enough nutrition. But if you have one that has a slightly crooked neck, or one that doesn't have very many leaves on the bottom, you can use this to your advantage, because you can actually plant it a lot deeper. Because these plants will produce adventitious roots all the way down here, much like a tomato. Now this here, it looks like powdery mildew, but it's actually because I overhead watered, and it got a little bit of water scarring. They have simple leaves that have slight serration, but they start off almost like a fishtail. It's really interesting. They have complete flowers, so by that I mean every single plant has male and female flowers, all in the same flower. However, these guys are dioecious, which means that you require more than one plant to produce fruit. So with tomatillos, if you have only one, you're just going to get flowers and you're never going to get any fruit. However, if you have multiple plants with multiple open flowers at the same time, you'll get fruit. Simple as that. So these guys here are quite drought tolerant, but another thing I will say is they need a lot of water while they're being established until they become a bit more mature. So you want to keep these guys well watered until they're about this size, keeping them consistently moist. And then you want to hold back a little bit on watering and let them dry out a little bit between waters as they get more mature. Now another thing I want to say is if you want to encourage even more blooming, you can pinch these guys back, but just make sure that you don't pinch existing blooms, because then you miss out on the fruit. Once the fruit's set, it usually takes about 10 days or so to get your actual full tomatillo fruit. So in the beginning of the video, I said that you have Physalis ixocarpa, and then you have Physalis philadelphica. The only difference is the philadelphica has slightly longer fruit, and the ixocarpa has a tendency to go a little bit purple. Same flavor profile, pretty much same growth habit. Now these plants over here really like full sun. I never really like saying that a plant likes full sun, because that a lot of people tend to misunderstand that and just put it in direct sunlight all the time, and then their plants get burnt, and then they get mad at me. They're like, Max, why did you tell me to put it in full sun? It burnt. But these guys here can take it. They're definitely a full sun plant. They're not very heavy feeders, especially not compared to peppers and tomatoes, but they do benefit from a liquid feed fertilizer. They like for the soil to be pretty neutral. And you can prune some side shoots in the beginning, but I don't recommend pruning these off when the plant gets mature, because these will fruit for you. The petals have this ruffled whorl to them. See if that focuses. I really hope that focuses. The ixocarpa variety will have this brown kind of color in the middle. Some of them do not. They originally start postured downwards, and as they open up they get this sideways posture. Some common problems people have are yellowing leaves. Yellowing leaves almost always is an indicator of underwatering with these guys. A lot of people will get leaf drop. Leaf drop is usually overwatering. If you get like a whole wilty plant, usually that's because you're overwatering it. And some people will get blooms that always face upwards and blooms that fall down. Usually that's a temperature thing. So these guys really enjoy really warm summers, but within reason. If it gets over 32, 33, 34 degrees Celsius, they will drop all of their blooms, and you don't want that. These guys are not frost tolerant. They will continually produce until the first frost in the fall. However, once it gets down to about 8 degrees Celsius, they do tend to dwindle off a little bit. You can take cuttings. Just take a cutting of one individual cane or branch, and you can root those in water. It takes about 10 days. They're kind of slow, but pretty successful. You can grow these guys by seed. You can save some of the seed. And they germinate really quickly. Seeds are usually viable for about 3 years, so they do have quite a long viability. Another thing I want to say about these guys is when you're eating them, make sure not to eat the husk. The husk is actually mildly toxic. It has solanite in it. And make sure you wash them too. So these guys here aren't generally fussy with pollinators. There's a nice thumbnail. They don't really require supplemental bees or anything if you're into that. They just kind of do their own thing as long as you have 2 plants. You can also put them on a trellis, but they do like somewhere with a lot of round space because they do have a very round expanding canopy. They might require some staking so that they don't fall off. But yeah, so these are Tomatillos, Miltomate. This here is called Toma Verde, it's the variety. It's basically a tomato plant that behaves like a pepper, and wonderful in green salsa. So have a wonderful day, you guys. Stay blessed, and yeah, be healthy.